Hi, I'm Richard McPherson. I am the Chief Instructor at Let's Ride Motorcycle Training, and in this lesson we're going to be talking about helmet and clothing. So, there is only one piece of clothing that is a legal requirement for riding a bike on the road. So yes, you guessed it, the helmet is the only legal requirement for riding a motorcycle on the road. I mean, you could ride around in just your pants if you want to, as long as you're wearing a helmet, but that really is not a very good idea, is it? So let's talk about helmets. So there's a menagerie of different helmets on the market. So what on earth do you choose? Well, firstly, the two most important things when picking a helmet is, number one, is make sure it fits your head properly. That is the most important thing. A helmet which doesn't fit properly is not only uncomfortable, but it can be very dangerous, particularly if it's too loose. So helmet fitting is pretty crucial. In terms of how it should feel on you, it needs to be a snug fit without being so uncomfortable that it's cutting off blood circulation. So it needs to be a tight fit, should be just gently pushing against your cheeks there. And then when you grab the chin bar, you shouldn't have an awful lot of left or right or up or down movement with your head inside, okay? So when you get a helmet, try it on nice and snug, grab the chin bar or side of the helmet if it doesn't have a chin bar, and just try moving your head left and right, up or down in it, and make sure it's a good snug fit without being uncomfortable. Now, this is the good thing with buying a helmet from a dealer, is that they've got people inside the shop there who are trained to make sure their helmet fits you properly. So it's always best to go and try and buy from a shop rather than over the internet. So that's the most important thing, and the second thing is to make sure it's legal to use on the roads in the UK, or in fact Europe. And we used to have the British standard, the British kite mark, many years ago, but that has long since disappeared. All helmets now need to conform to EU regulations, and the regulation is the ECE 22.05. So how do we know our helmet is up to this ECE regulation 22.05? Well, there's a couple of ways. Quite often you'll find a sticker on the back of the helmet, and that will actually have a label and it'll have an E number. Now the E number just tells you the country of origin. There's a number, there's an E, and they say number 11, which is the UK, but it doesn't really matter what that number says. That just tells you the country of origin. But next to it, there'll be an ECE number, ECER, so ECE regulation 22.05. So that is the regulation that you're looking for. Now sometimes that label isn't on the back of the helmet, but it will be sewn in to the strap of the helmet. There's a label sewn into the strap, and all helmets must have that, and that will have ECER 20, well actually have a serial number beginning with 05. That's what to look for. So have a serial number beginning with 05. So that's what you're looking for the regulations of the helmet. So two most important things are make sure it fits your head properly, and then make sure it's up to ECE regulations. So different styles of helmet, well, there's all sorts of different styles. I myself wear the flip helmet. So it's a full face helmet, and it has a chin bar which just flips up there, which is great for when you want to get off the bike and fill up with petrol and things like that. You don't need to take your helmet off. The downside with the flip helmets is they are quite heavy compared to your regular full face helmet. And you've also got to just think about the fact there is a hinge mechanism here, which does make the helmet a little bit weaker than your fully molded helmets. Okay, so a bit heavier and a little bit less strength on the chin bar, but otherwise they're very versatile. Can you ride with the flip up? Does totally depend on the helmet that you buy. Now, if it's what's called a dual homologated helmet, then yes, you can ride with the flip up. What you'll find with the dual homologated helmets is that there's a switch or a lever on the side of the helmet which will lock the chin bar into position. Now that's the important thing. If it can't be locked up, it's not legal to ride the bike with the chin bar up, okay? It must be down and locked into place. If it does have the locking mechanism, which my helmet does here, you basically lift the chin bar up and then lock it into place, and then that's not going anywhere. Okay, so just make sure, if you do want a helmet where you can ride with the chin bar up, it's a dual homologated helmet with a locking mechanism on the chin bar, and then it is legal to ride with the chin bar up. Okay, so the next style of helmet is the full face helmet, which is the most common helmet and, in my eyes, the safest one, because it gives you your head protection and your chin bar, but it doesn't have that hinge mechanism, so it is stronger than the flip helmet. And they are lighter as well. So that's the next one. Okay, so the next style of helmet is the Motocross Style. So pros and cons to this one. Pros are very light. They're very airy as well, so you've got a lot of space between your mouth and where the chin bar starts. So great in the summer months, not so good in the winter. Can be very cold helmets, those ones. Very good peripheral vision from the sides of the helmets, which is great. But there's no eye protection, so you need to get some motorcycle goggles for those ones, and you get a sun peak too, which is great for sunny days like this where the sun can get into your eyes a little bit there. So not my personal favourite for the fact they are very airy, and they can get very cold in the winter, but that said, in the summer they're fantastic. Okay, so the next style of helmet is the open face helmet. Now, pros and cons with this one. Pros are very, very light helmets with fabulous peripheral vision. It's almost like you're not wearing a helmet, but there's a big downside, and that is no chin protection. So in an accident, you've got to bear in mind that if you're taking a tumble, I read an article once where they did some research on the areas of the head which is impacted, and 30% of the impacts are your chin. Okay, so you really do need a chin bar just to protect that. Okay, so not my personal favourite, but a lot of people love them, a lot of people swear by them, and people who suffer from claustrophobia tend to prefer the open face, because the full face you just feel a little bit too restricted. So pros and cons to the open face one there. Okay, so how do these things work? Well, you've got this hard outer shell here. Now this can be made of all sorts of different materials. It used to be made of fiberglass. Now we have polycarbonate helmets. You get Kevlar helmets, all sorts of different helmets. So what is the difference? Well, probably weight is the biggest difference. The more money you spend, particularly when you get to like Kevlar, the things weigh next to nothing. It's quite astonishing. Whereas your cheaper helmets tend to be a little bit more on the heavy side. So that's one of the big differences. Also, you know, when you're paying the big bucks, when you're getting your Kevlar helmets, they are super, super strong. I mean, don't be afraid of a cheap helmet though. I mean, you can get a good helmet now for about £40, which is astonishing. And there's nothing to be afraid of with the cheaper helmets. Remember, they all adhere to exactly the same standards. They all up to the 22.05 ECE regulation. So there's nothing wrong with a cheap helmet. But obviously, you get what you pay for. When you spend £200, £300, £400 on a helmet, comfort levels just go through the roof. They're fabulous to wear. The weight goes down and the strength increases. But there is nothing wrong with a £40 helmet. So don't be put off by that. Just make sure it's got that ECE stamp. A great website, if you want to get even more in depth in how helmets are strength tested, is the Sharp rating. Sharp, S-H-A-R-P, Sharp rating. They actually test most helmets quite stringently, a lot more stringent than the ECE standard. So if you want to see how good a helmet actually is, go to the Sharp website and check them out. So yeah, the hard outer shell, what's that designed to do? Well, two things really. One is it's designed to take an impact and then spread that energy around the rest of the helmet. The second thing is to stop things penetrating into your head. Okay, so that is what that's designed to do. Now, in terms of thickness, it is not very thick at all. Okay, it's not very thick. It's not very good at absorbing energy, but it is good at spreading energy, and it's good at stopping things going into your head. So that's what the hard outer shell is designed to do. So inside the helmet, then we've got a layer of probably 2-inch thick high-density polystyrene. Now what that's designed to do is crush. It's designed to absorb energy away from your head. And it's also there just to decelerate your head at a uniform rate. So it's a bit like a car seatbelt in that respect. Because what you don't want to happen is stop instantly. Because if you stop instantly, that's when bad things can happen. That's where you can get brain damage. Whereas if we can stop quickly, albeit very quickly, so it's decelerating quickly, then that helps prevent the serious damage to your brain. It can result in concussion, but not the brain damage. So that is what that is designed to do. Very, very similar to a car seat belt. However, it's a one-use only item. That polystyrene does not spring back into shape once it's been used in an accident. So what does that tell you? Well, that tells you that the helmet is game over. If you ever have an accident and this thing hits the deck hard, then that is the end of the helmet. Don't risk it. Just chuck it away. Get yourself a new one. These are one-use only items. Okay. Then we have padding. Now the padding is with two purposes of the padding. One is fitting. That's probably the most important thing. It's to get the helmet fitting to your head nice and snugly, and it's also comfort levels as well. Now this does lose its elasticity over time. I mean, it should last the life of the helmet. Lasts about 5 years for regular use. But don't forget, the more you use a helmet, so if you're someone like myself who's using the helmet every day in all sorts of different weather conditions, then they do weaken a lot quicker, and I can be replacing a helmet within a couple of years. Whereas a sort of average rider can get away with about 5 years on a helmet. But if it starts getting loose, then the helmet needs to be replaced, or at least the lining replaced, because a lot of this lining is actually detachable, which is great because it does get a bit smelly in the summer months. So you can remove all of this lining on most helmets and wash it, which is very, very handy indeed. So that's that. Okay, then at the bottom here we have a strap. Now then, it is a legal requirement that if you're sat on a bike on the road, irrelevant if the engine is running, if you're sat on the bike on the road, you have to have a helmet on, and it needs to be fastened. Okay, now that's very, very important. And it also needs to be adjusted correctly too. So there's a few different styles of strap. Now this one is a sort of ratchet system. So you've got these two ends here. We just push them together. You hear it click, 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 and you just adjust that until it's at the correct adjustment on your head. So what is the correct adjustment? Well, you don't want it so loose it can come over your chin, but you also don't want it so tight you can't move your jaw. So what I suggest, adjust your strap so you can just about squeeze a couple of fingers between your chin and the strap itself. Okay, but no looser than that. And then to release it, you just pull the red tag and out it pops. So that's very, very easy. The other style is the double D loops. Now, this is the one I tend to recommend because it's totally friction based, which means it can't fail. With the ratchet style and the seatbelt style, which I'll come to in just a moment, there is a mechanical operation involved, which means there is a point of failure possibly. So it's not as strong as the double D loops. I mean, to be honest, I've never heard of these failing, so don't overly worry about that. But the D loops, because it's purely friction based, there's no moving parts, it can't fail, which is great. Now D loops can be a little bit tricky to fasten up for the first couple of times, but basically you'll feed the strap through the two Ds, and you loop it over the second one through the first one, and then pull it tight onto your chin there. And then to release it, you grab the tab, pull it down, wiggle it, and it will all loosen up, and then you can put it through. It's a bit tricky for the first few times, but once you get the hang of it, it's very, very easy. And if you want to know how good they are, you'll only ever see the D loops on professional rider helmets. Okay, so all the racers will only ever use D loops, so that tells you something. Okay, so, and then the final style is the seatbelt style, much like your car seatbelt. It's just literally just clunk and click, and then you press the button and it unclicks. Very, very easy indeed. And then to adjust it, you've just got a little buckle on that one. The ratchet one is quite good because you can adjust it each time without adjusting the buckle, whereas the seatbelt style does loosen up and you have to adjust the buckle every so often. The D loops as well, you don't need to adjust, you just pull it tight. So there's pros and cons to each style there. Whatever strap you decide to have, make sure it's done up every single time. Okay, so that's straps. So we move forward then, and you'll see that most helmets, other than the open face, will have air vents on them. There'll be little tabs on the top of the helmet you can open and close, sometimes on the chin bar. So great for the hot days, not so good on the colder days there. Okay, so it's up to you whether you want to use those. And then we move on to the visors. So, interesting fact, it's not a legal requirement to have eye protection, but if you do have eye protection, it must be ECE approved. Okay, so you could ride without eye protection, but not a good idea. Bumblebees hurt at 30 miles an hour, trust me. Okay, so eye protection must be ECE approved. And we do that by looking at the side of the visor, and there is either a label or an engraving, very similar to the label on the helmet, saying ECE 22.05. That's what we're looking for there. Now with goggles, slightly different. So motorcycle goggles, we're looking for CE approved goggles. There'll be a little stamp on the side saying CE approved. So remember, if you're wearing eye protection which is not approved, you can get fined for that. All right, so just be careful. Not to mention, if you're buying cheap visors which aren't approved, there's a real danger. If something serious hits them like a stone, the things can shatter. Okay, so there's a reason to go for the ECE standard there. So the visors, they're all on a ratchet system, so you can have it in various different positions. You can have it up a little bit, a bit more, and a bit more again. It doesn't matter where you put it. I mean, you can ride with it all the way up, but again, you've lost all your eye protection there, so it's worth having it down just a little bit to protect your eyes. But if it's a hot day, you can have it up just a smidgen there, or if you're having issues with the visor steaming up a little bit, you can lift it up, just get a bit of air circulating behind it. There's some great ideas out there to stopping visors misting up. The best option is to get what's called a pin lock visor. So on my helmet, there's these two pins on either side, and that allows me to attach an inner visor. It's a bit like double glazing. So when you put the inner visor in, your hot breath hits the inner visor, but that heat and moisture doesn't get to the cold outer visor, and it stops it misting up. It's a very, very clever device. And you can get a similar sort of system where if you don't have the pin locks, you can get these inner visors with little sticky tabs on it and just stick it inside the visor there. So there's a couple of ways to keep the visor demisted if you're having issues in the colder days there. Now keep the visor clean for obvious reasons, and just warm soapy water. Don't have anything stronger than that. So warm soapy water, and just give it a good wipe over, get rid of all the bugs. Now over a period of time, these visors will get scratched. There's nothing you can do about that. That's them doing their job. If they get too badly scratched, it's going to start impeding your vision. Also, it makes it quite difficult to see at night time as well, because the light can reflect off the scratches and be quite dazzling. So if it gets too badly damaged, just replace them. They're not awfully expensive, sort of 10, 15 quid for a replacement visor. No drama at all there. Okay, so that covers visors. Tinted visors. Can you wear a tinted visor? Well, yes. Daytime use only. And again, the visor must be CE approved. So like your full-on race spec visors, you can't legally wear on the road. So be careful of that. It must be CE approved. You'll find quite a lot of helmets now have got a dual visor system. So my helmet here has got a built-in black visor. Now that is not CE approved, but it doesn't matter, because that visor is. So as long as I have my clear visor over my tinted visor, I'm all good. Okay, so that's quite a nifty little gadget there. Definitely worth getting that if you can on your helmet, so your dual visor system. In terms of looking after the helmet, so again, cleaning it, warm soapy water, nothing more abrasive than that, otherwise you can start damaging the plastics. Don't decorate the helmets. Glue can be very damaging to plastics. So just pick a design that you like and just stick with that. So don't buy stickers and stick them all over your helmet. That can weaken it. And painting the helmet as well, not a good idea. Paint is very corrosive and can weaken the helmet. So pick the design that you like and stick with that. In terms of storing your helmets, you want to leave it somewhere where it can't take a tumble, because a significant drop can damage the helmet. Remember, the plastic on the outside can spring back into shape, but what doesn't is the internal polystyrene. So if this has taken a significant drop, then there could be internal damage that you don't know about. So you don't want to be dropping your helmet on anything. Well, don't drop the helmet at all, but Particularly don't drop it on anything hard. So leave it on the floor. Leave it somewhere where it can't be kicked. Don't leave it somewhere high up where it can be knocked off with an elbow. Don't leave it on your mirror of a bike where a gust of wind can take it off. Don't leave it perched on your back seat where a gust of wind or someone walking past your bike can knock it off. So always leave it on the ground. Would also suggest don't leave it on the ground that way round because it can roll around, scratching the helmet. Leave it that way round. And if you're leaving it on the ground outside, top tip is to put your gloves down first and then put your helmets on the gloves so you're not getting all your lovely lining all dirtied up there. So cost-wise, I've already touched on it. 30, 40 pounds, to sky's the limit, thousands of pounds. This particular helmet cost me about 160 pounds, I think. But you know, the helmets we used for training back there, we got those for about 50 pounds a pop. So really not that expensive, but they're really good helmets. So don't be afraid of the cheaper helmets. There's nothing wrong with them at all. Just make sure it's got that ECE mark there. But this is the single most important piece of equipment you're going to be wearing. So make sure it fits you well. Make sure it's got that ECE stamp on it. And look after it. Don't lend it to people. This is a very personal bit of kit. If you lend it to your friends, they're not going to look after it as well as you are. And particularly if they've got a bigger head than you, it's going to stretch all this lining. And when you get your helmet back, it's not going to fit very well at all. So very personal bit of kit. Don't lend it to anyone. Okay, so that's the only legal requirement for riding a bike on the road. However, we've got to think about the rest of ourselves. You know, it scares the life out of me when I see people riding around in shorts and t-shirt, because this stuff versus tarmac is not going to be a pretty sight. So we really got to think about the rest of our bodies. So let's talk about jackets. So jackets, all sorts of things you can get. I mean, what's the minimum? Well, I mean, I suppose that denim jacket wouldn't be too bad. At a low speed off, but not that good, quite frankly. Get a proper motorcycle jacket. They're a lot stronger. They have armor plating, and depending on the material that you're using, can be waterproof as well. So I ride around in a textile jacket. There's pros and cons to all the different styles. So the pros with the textile is they're quite light. They're waterproof, which is great. You'll find all sorts of different air vents zipped into them, so you can open air vents in your arms. They usually have detachable lining as well. So for the summer months, you take out the lining, and the winter months pop it back in there. It's absolutely great. It's got armour plating. Now we're looking for armour in the high impact areas. So elbows, they can come down quite hard. Shoulders can hit the deck quite hard, so you get some shoulder pads as well. And ideally, if you can, get a spine board, a back protector. Things like elbows and shoulders can heal reasonably easily if they get broken, but if your spine gets broken, that's not clever. So try and get a jacket with, or at least an insert where you can put a spine board in and get one. They're well worth having the spine boards there. Now, it's not a legal requirement, but the armour inside your jacket, try and make sure it's CE approved. Now, you can often see that there's a yellow label sewn into the jacket which says CE armour. If it doesn't have that, you can actually remove the armour. So you have to forage around inside. There's usually a little zip. You can pull the armour out. And it's usually yellow in colour, but it'll have a CE stamp on it. And that just means you've got good high quality armour there. And in terms of fitting, again, it needs to be a reasonably snug fit. Also, bear in mind that in the winter months, you might want to put on a few more layers. So there needs to be a little bit of wiggle room inside, but not too much. What you don't want is this armour sort of slipping around your arm or your shoulders if you're taking a bit of a tumble down the road there. So textile, very, very versatile. You'll see a lot of riders using that. Downside is not quite as strong as your leather jacket. Leather is much stronger than your textile, which is why, again, you'll only see your professional riders wearing leather rather than textile. Cost-wise, you can get a good jacket sort of 40, 50, 60 pounds, all the way up to sky's the limit again. You're paying the big bucks for things like Gore-Tex, which is astonishing stuff. Keeps you very, very dry. in some of the most extreme conditions. So Gore-Tex is fabulous with stuff, but extraordinarily expensive. So price-wise, well, you can get a good jacket for £40–50, all the way up to, well, the sky's the limit, quite frankly. And this jacket was £400. I know some people with jackets upwards of £1,000. They're crazy money. But, you know, don't feel you've got to spend an absolute fortune. So 50 quid upwards will get you a really nice jacket. So the leather jackets, so again, pros and cons. Big pro, very, very strong and fantastic abrasion resistance. Okay, so if you are sliding down the road, they can take that punishment. So the downside with the leather jackets is that they are very heavy compared to the textile. Not particularly waterproof. In fact, they can act like a sponge sometimes. If your leather jacket gets absolutely drenched, it can take days to dry out. So if you do get leather, it's worth having a waterproof overcoat, which are cheap as chips. You can get for about £10. Just a little waterproof overcoat just to keep the water off the leather there. But the downside, I think, is definitely outweighed by the upside, which is the strength and the abrasion resistance. You can get all the same things as the textiles. You can get your armour and spine boards. Some do have the air vents as well, and some do also have the removable inner lining, which is quite nice. And price-wise, quite comparable to the textile, actually, sort of 50–60 quid upwards for a half-decent one, although you tend to pay a bit more for the good leather jackets. Sort of £200–300 will get you a really nice leather jacket there. So those are the two different styles of jacket. Next on the list is trousers. Exactly the same as the jackets, really, in terms of what you're looking for. So fitment, and again, looking for armour in the high impact areas. So hips, that can come down quite hard. Knee protection, shin protection as well. Again, looking for CE approved armour. And again, you can get textile, you can get leather, you can get air vents, you can get lining, and prices very similar to the jackets. I mean, the very least for trousers is a pair of jeans. I mean, non-distressed, you know, just a decent pair of jeans. But denim does not stay together particularly well when it's been dragged down the road. So try and avoid denim if you can. Get some decent trousers. Okay, next thing is feet. So again, what we're looking for, well, you know, I see people in trainers. Trainers are certainly better than nothing, certainly better than flip-flops, which I've seen some people wear, which blows my mind. But trainers don't cover the ankle very well. They're not strong. They can come off the foot really easily. So not a great choice. Try and look at something a bit tougher. So a walking boot, very, very strong. They also cover that ankle bone up, because what you don't want to happen is if your bike takes a tumble and your foot gets trapped underneath it, that weight's pushing your foot into the road, and if your ankle is just exposed, it can be pretty nasty. So get something just to cover that ankle bone up, like a walking boot. Be careful with any shoes with laces, particularly if you're on a geared bike. Those laces can dangle down, get caught on levers, and that can leave you with your foot trying to come down. You can't put it on the deck, which can be quite amusing. So if you do get laces, tuck them away. So a pair of walking boots you can get for, I know, not a lot of money, 20 quid, 30 quid for a half decent set of boots from a supermarket. You know, they're very, very cheap. Better than that though, ideally, is some proper motorcycle boots. So I've got big boots which come up to here on my leg, which gives me an awful lot of protection. They've got extra armour on the sides, top of the shoe there. There's no laces, it's a zip and Velcro. These are they used to be waterproof. I don't think they're waterproof now, but they were waterproof in their day. And these cost me, these are £120 for these ones. So you can get smaller boots than this, which just go over the ankle rather than all the way up your leg. And price-wise, I've seen cheap boots, £40–50, all the way up to loads of money. So all sorts of different boots out there. You've got summer boots, you've got winter boots. If you're going to be riding all year round, the waterproofing is definitely worth having, but that does fail after a period of time. The more money, the more strength, and you get added things like torsion bars, which are bars on the side of the boot which stop the ankle from twisting the wrong way. So there's all sorts of different boots out there for all different styles of riding. Just get that ankle protected and get a good sturdy construction boot. Okay, last thing then is hands. Yes. Don't forget, You know, if you fall over, what's the instinct? Your brain says, hands out. Same on a bike. If you feel the bike going from underneath you, your instinct is hands on the deck. And if you imagine this soft, fleshy stuff against the tarmac, even at walking pace, it hurts. You can imagine at 30, 40, 50, 60 miles an hour. Not going to be pretty. So get some decent gloves. So I've got, would you believe, 3 pairs of gloves. Some for my summer riding, some for the autumn, some for the winter. So what are the differences? Well, the summer gloves, very thin, very strong but thin. They've got perforations to let the air in. They've got a little bit of a wrist strap, but not much of a gauntlet. So they're nice and airy, so great for the summer days. Become winter time, they're awful. Your hands just turn into ice blocks. So when autumn comes and the weather starts to turn, I go for some slightly thicker gloves. Not full-on winters. They've got a slightly bigger gauntlet and a bit thicker. A bit more expensive, and they're waterproof as well. And then come winter time, my winter gloves, very, very thick, thermal lining in them, Gore-Tex as well to give you the waterproofing, and a big gauntlet up the arm, just to stop all the wind and rain going up the arm there. But you pay for it. So a good winter glove could cost you sort of £90 to £100 upwards compared to your summer gloves, which I've seen for as little as £15. So it's definitely worth buying 2, maybe 3 pairs of gloves if you're riding all year round, because there's nothing worse than riding in the summer with winter gloves on because your hands just turn into sweat boxes. And conversely, there's nothing worse than riding in the winter with summer gloves on because your hands just turn into ice blocks. So yeah, get a few pairs of gloves. And not to mention, if you have to ride to work and it's pouring with rain and your gloves are soaking wet when you get to work, it's much nicer to go home with nice dry gloves. So take a couple of pair of gloves with you. Okay, so that is it for clothing. I hope you found that useful. So remember, this is all just a guide for you. The only legal requirements are the helmet. Everything else is just advice that we give you. And you don't have to spend a fortune. You could get a whole outfit for less than £300 if you shop around quite easily, including helmet. So, but get the best you can afford. People spend thousands of pounds on beautiful motorcycles and nothing on themselves, which is crazy. Your bike is covered by an insurance company. You are not. So get the best possible protective clothing that you can get. But please remember, no matter what clothing you have, don't let it lull you into a false sense of security. All clothing does, really, is protect your skin. It doesn't stop bones breaking or internal injuries, okay? So don't let it lull you into a false sense of security. If you have the best clothing ever, it does not make you invulnerable. So you still need to be riding very safely indeed. Okay, thanks very much. See you on the next one.